My name is Matt Abrams. I host Medical Device Matt on YouTube, just talking about the medical device field. I put this webinar on with a great panel to really showcase what they're doing and how they got into medical device. It's a field in undergrad that I did not know much about, nor did I know after college, but really just stumbled upon it really happenstance. Absolutely love it for many different reasons. People often talk about salary, but I think for me, more importantly, is the impact you have on patients' lives, the innovation happening in the space, specifically where I came from in cardiac or ABs and AI. It's really exciting and it's a great way as you navigate your life that, I don't know all the answers, but what I found was after college or, moving through the decades after, it offered a lot, be it healthcare benefits, good salary, really strong freedom of life. So for me, I'm super passionate about educating about this field. I think in college or post college, a lot of people know about JD or becoming a lawyer, medicine, and they don't really know about the amazing careers outside of those main fields. I think if you're studying and getting a college degree, absolutely fantastic. If you're specifically in STEM, science, tech, engineering, math, there's a lot of doors that could open, such as PhD routes, MD routes, but all the healthcare possibilities and business sales and the medical device field. So tonight's webinar, I want to thank all of you for hopping on and giving your time to listen. We have a great panel. I introduce myself. I'll let the two of them introduce themselves, and then we'll kick it off with kind of their story of how they broke into medical device, what they're doing now. And what's really special is we're going to have two unique perspectives. KB's currently working, and then Agasthya is currently an undergrad, so how he prepared for post-graduation, which is really unique to be where he is so involved in the med device in a really awesome company. And then I'll share a little bit about how I broke in and how I prepared. And then lastly, we'll just do open Q&A. Happy for people to come off mic. You could drop questions in the chat. And if no one wants to come up with questions, I got a list from all the questions you guys submitted, so we'll be good there. So with all that, thank you. I appreciate you all hopping on. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
So I'm Agasthya. I am a senior BME major, so biomedical engineering at Drexel in Philadelphia. And I'd say my most notable med device experience is working in structural heart over the past 6 to 7 months at a startup called Excision Medical, which is working in a really niche field called leaflet modification, which essentially works with TAVRs, aortic valve replacements, and essentially improving flow to the coronary arteries when a second TAVR is put in.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Katelynne Berland. I'm currently full-time sales at DASI Simulations. Basically, our goal is to create simulation software that helps plan these aortic valve replacements. And similar to what Agatha just described, he's at a similar company that's maybe not doing simulations, but in the same structural heart space for TAVR, looking to reduce some of these complications associated with the procedure, etc. So excited to dive more into this. And thanks again, Matt, for hosting this great webinar. Yeah, more to come.
Of course, and I'll be a placeholder. If Min hops on, he's currently in the OR doing surgery, focus on the patient and the outcome. He's in orthopedics doing sales there, really exciting role. If he hops on, he was going to plug in and give a little bit about a day in the life. If not, I'm Matt Abrams. You heard that earlier. And what I would talk about is how I broke into pacemakers and ICDs, pacing, CRDM, a really amazing field to go into after college. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a day in the life if Min does not hop on. But this was really about the panel. With that being said, we'll bump it back to the panel, and I think if we could answer, what a day in the life is for kind of your role in the medical device field and how you got into this role.
Yeah, so I could talk about that. So I'll start with my journey first. Freshman year, I was looking for internships in the med device field. I was in between pre-med and BME, wasn't sure what to do. And then I just hopped on LinkedIn and I knew that cold applying wasn't working for me. So I started sending out messages to people in my area. And luckily there was a startup nearby called Cogware working on an ambulatory EEG. So wearable EEG that's supposed to help with detecting Alzheimer's really early on. So I love the idea of the product, and I sent a DM to the CEO saying, "Hey, I love your product. I'd love to work with you. I'm a freshman, super interested." And that's what got me my first role at a startup after my freshman year. And I mainly worked remote though, so it was quality work and working a lot of paperwork and like test development. So it was my first role. The What I liked about it was the device itself. It was great to like go to the CEO's basement because they didn't have actual facility. It was very early early stage, and to see the device, work with it, which is great. But being remote is what kind of held me back. So I knew in my next role, I wanted to move forward to a more like hands-on role. And after that, I got to work in an orthopedic biomechanics laboratory my sophomore, like junior year, where I got to work with porcine tissue and tensile stress testing it. Some more on the R&D side to collect data to help create a possible human um, prosthetic for that. And then my big break came from working at Excision, which I got through my co-op system at Drexel. And being in the social heart space was great. And it was everything I ever wanted because I got to wear multiple hats and be at an actual facility where I could help out with R&D, or when it was a doctor visit, I could help out with the product demo or even hopping with meetings with other sales reps, people like that. Um, but ultimately, I'd say structural heart is what I really love because it's very innovative and there's a big market for that place.
Awesome. So we'll save questions to the end, but what I love hearing is, you're an undergraduate, absolutely amazing student, but how involved you're already in the medical device field. And another takeaway for me was, you wanted to get in, and often in undergrad, you have to reach out to labs to join or companies. And I hear a lot of people today that are trying to break into medical device through applications. It's super tough. It feels like ghosting. People don't respond. I know how tough it is, but you have to keep reaching out. And sometimes you get, I would say a lucky break where someone's interested, you meet, and then you could parlay that into a really exciting kind of first role. I know there's probably a lot of questions about that, but we'll save it towards the end and we'll let KB speak and share her story and then a little bit of the day in the life.
Yeah. So I'm gonna share my screen. I thinking about how I got here. I put together this little cute collage of some pictures, and so I wanted to share that with you guys as well. So sorry if this is like a lot of pictures, but I thought it was important about the journey. So here in the middle is me and my family. So my younger sister goes to NC State, my wonderful mother who supported me through, college and, in my career now. And I have some fun pets, Rocco and Cheeto. In my free time, I do a lot of crafts. I went to Georgia Tech, so also biomedical engineering major. My story is, I guess, a little similar in that I came into Georgia Tech knowing that I really was interested in the cardiovascular technology space. From a young age, I was exposed to, I guess, so I lost my dad when I was younger to cardiovascular disease, and seeing him go through a lot of these open heart procedures and traveling and learning about, the common cardiovascular diseases, congenital heart defects really got me interested in the space. And there was a lab at Georgia Tech called the Cardiovascular Fluid Mechanics Lab, led by Dr. Ajit Yoganathan, who's really a founder in the space for the bioprosthetic valve field. And so that's really what propelled me to want to go to Georgia Tech. And I was lucky enough to A, get in, and then B, actually get into his lab and work there all 4 years. And then he retired, and Dr. DASI, Prasad DASI, who was the co-founder and chief technology officer at DASI, where I work now, he took over. And so naturally, all of the work I was doing was geared towards the company at that point. And so it was very grateful that I had that opportunity, and kind of as a natural transition. And I guess didn't really have to apply to many jobs because it was from school straight into industry with Dr. Dossi and the company. But it's been a great journey, and essentially, I guess going back to the question, the day in the life. So right now, I work here in Columbus, Ohio, where our main office is. We have some people that work remote all over the country, like Matt on the West Coast. But I started as a simulation engineer. And so essentially what that looks like is taking in the CT scans from these patients that are having this aortic valve replacement, modeling their anatomy, deploying the different devices inside, and saying, how can we predict some of the complications that are associated with this device? And then we create these reports that show some quantitative analysis, and we present these back to the physicians that then can make better informed decisions about that patient's procedure, what valve to choose, whether that patient gets a different treatment or TAVR, that was kind of what I did for the first year, year and a half. And then one day, and here I can stop sharing. Terry, our CEO, pulled me in and was like, "Hey, you seem like you would be great in sales. Have you ever considered a career in sales? Are you interested in that and all?" And honestly, it had never crossed my mind. I originally was going to medical school, MD, PhD, and decided to come work first. And so sales was not in my intended pathway, but just because I was very social and, found this work very rewarding and engaged with the physicians, I said, let's give it a try. And so for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, I've helped build the sales team for the company since we still are really small. And it's been great. Again, very rewarding getting to work very closely with the physicians and even some patients. And I guess I'm learning a lot from Matt as well, where he comes with 10 plus years of sales experience, and getting to work under him and a few other people has taught me a lot about the space. So yeah.
JB, that's awesome. I didn't realize how you got into this field. Thank you for sharing about your family. I know that's extremely hard. Often talking to people, I hear about, they're in the hospital with their parents or a member, and they learn about the medical device field. What KB does is super exciting. She had a lot of amazing photos of her pets and family, but she creates 3D simulations of the heart to help physicians with a really complex, risky procedure to make sure those patients could go back home to their family. So thank you for sharing that. And it's fun to hear, kind of a true engineering background and how you navigated into med device, specifically AI. And more exciting, we got a special guest, our third panelist, Min, I think made it out of the OR. He's here. Man, we did quick intros. Would love to see if you could share a little bit of how you got a med device. Men's a good friend. He came from the ortho background, so we talked a lot about a really specific field, structural heart, which is under the umbrella of cardiac. I know we have varying, expertise on the call. Med device is an encompassing field. It could be from, cancer to cardiac to diabetes to neurology. We had two people speak on a very specific niche in cardiology. And Min's going to come on and speak about his world, which is a totally different segment of med device. And he's in the OR covering, I'll call orthopedics.
All right. Thanks for hanging in. And first, I'd just like to thank Mac for giving me this opportunity to speak on my experiences of breaking into medical device sales as someone with a more clinical background working in a pharma R&D role. That was what I started out as first when I just graduated college. Didn't know what to do with my degree, so I just did the same thing that everyone else did, was just become a scientist. From there, I worked on oncology therapeutics for around a year or so before I started to realize I want to more focus on the patient. And we have this thing in our company every year where they basically round up some of the patients that have undergone the treatment that we provide for them through our research, and basically just have them speak on how it's changed their life from before they took the medication. And so now what they're able to do now that the treatment has been gone through. And I really connected with that. I felt like I could make more of a direct impact moving into something where I get to see the direct results, because in pharma R&D, it usually takes 10 to 12 years of clinical development from phase 1 trials to phase 3 trials. And from there, you kind of disconnected from the work that you do in terms of the results that you're able to produce. So I started to talk to a bunch of random people, including Matt, connected with everyone from med devices, from ortho to EP to cardiac heart, everyone, just so I can overload myself with as much information as possible to see if it's something that I might be interested in. And from there, I kind of fell in love with the field. The more you learn about this field, the more I hear about how much impact you're able to make on the patient. And it's been pretty much the case ever since I started this job. It combines a lot of the technical knowledge that I had before in terms of my degree and my understanding of the anatomy into a more problem-solving focus, where you're in the OR every single day, helping out surgeons get the best outcomes for their patients, seeing how you can contribute any way to the OR, right? You are a guest in the hospital, and your job is to make sure that everything runs as smooth as possible. Things can go wrong, and your job is to make sure that if they do go wrong, you're ready for anything that happens. In terms of just day to day, it's early mornings, it's prepping trays, it's running different trays from different hospitals to other ones, preparing for case schedules, making sure the surgeon knows that you're coming and that everything is smooth. The less they know about it, the better. So as long as it's good to go, That's all they need to know. It's a lot of communicating with different departments throughout the hospital, whether that be sterile processing to supply chain to the nursing team, making sure they have a complete understanding of how the surgery is going to go and whether or not they need extra things that you are bringing or not. So it's focused on education, logistics, problem solving, not just the selling aspect, right? You're there to make sure the case is running smoothly and the patient gets the best outcome. Um, in terms of breaking in, the transition was actually a lot more connection focused than I realized initially. My previous approach when it comes to job applications was just to mass apply to as many different companies as possible. But once I narrowed it down to a few companies that I was able to really see a vision in and envision myself pursuing in the future, I really did a deep dive on their product line, their competitors, what their space market is, and talk to as many people in the company as possible. I think actually my boss is here too, so he'll directly comment on that. I just called him up and we chat for hours, get an understanding of what it is that they're looking for in terms of if they're bringing me on the team, what kind of things they're expecting me to do, and whether or not I can achieve that. And once you kind of take on that mindset of what can I do for the other person, that's kind of what you're doing in this job anyway, right? If you're able to put yourself in the place of the person you're bringing in. So in this case, if you're a surgeon and a rep is coming to the OR, what would they want from you? And that's what the approach that I took for my current role too. If my hiring manager brought me on, what would they want me to do, and how can I best show that I'm able to do that? So a big thing when it comes to this role in terms of success that I found was just being able to understand what the other person wants from the other side, right? Like be the best person that you can be. It's about partnership. You and the surgeon, you're on the same side working for the patient. And whatever way they want to do that, that's what you're there to support, right? It's attitude of a golden retriever and memory of a goldfish. You don't be afraid to speak up if you see something that doesn't look right, because at the end of the day, you might get a few looks here and there, but if the patient gets the best outcome, that's all that matters. So the first few months was a lot of drinking from the fire hose, as you can say. It's a lot about learning hospital systems, learning your product, learning the anatomy, so that when you are in the OR, you are a valuable resource for everyone involved. You want to learn everyone's names in the OR, the techs, the nurses, the charge staff. Everyone there is going to be with you for a whole case, and that might affect the working dynamic a lot. And as much as you can, be friendly to them. Understand that it's their job, and you're there to help maintain and facilitate it as best as possible. Um, a lot of the surgeons that I work with, they're not just your customers too. They're there to make sure that um, the patient gets the best outcome. Your customers are also your regional team and ultimately the patient. Everything that you do has to work towards bettering the outcomes for any of those involved. If I were to look back and see what I could have done differently in terms of advice for you guys, breaking in, networking is the most important thing. So reach out to reps, your distributors, your alumni, see if any of them can just get you some information on what it is that you're looking for, because you don't know what you're looking for, right? I had no idea about this world until I actually did the research myself. And if I didn't, I would have been way over my head of years, because it's a lot of work. You want to get exposure to the clinical world, whether that be shadowing, volunteering, or internships at hospitals or at different sales jobs. And then you want to show curiosity about the products and anatomy, right? Take an active interest in what the surgeon is doing, what the company is doing, and what your hiring manager is looking for. Entry-level associate positions or distributor roles are great launch pads into further turning this to a future career. And I'm still on the process to becoming a full sales line rep myself. And the journey's been, if I didn't do the research that I did before, I think I would have not expected the amount of work that it was. But because I was able to talk to so many reps, I was able to understand the workload and prepare myself fully for it. Companies value that people who ask good questions show up early, stay calm when things get hectic. And as long as you're able to demonstrate that, you have a great chance. So overall, I think med device sales is one of the few careers where, science, business, healthcare kind of all overlap. And if any of your focus is that, I think it's a great path to go on. You're in the OR, you're seeing real impact on patients, you're learning, you're surrounded by people who have gone to school for, 10 years, helping so many patients' lives who push you to also grow at the same time. It's demanding, but super rewarding at the same time. If you love learning and you love problem solving, there's no better place to be.
Well
And that
said.
was, yeah, that was super well, amazing. I love the analogy of the animals, golden retriever and the goldfish. You got to add the duck though, because a duck, might be paddling for its life underwater, but no one could see that, and only you know that because at the top you got to be calm with your physicians and your customers. The three of you spoke about meeting someone at a med device company that helped you get in. So I think it's extremely important. We all have, amazing resumes. Everyone has a unique story to share, but more importantly, you met someone at this company where you made a personal connection to help vet. And Min, I liked how much research you did. We'll go into Q&A in a second, but for you, Min, I do have a question. Can you speak? Because Min, you are in the OR, true OR sales, med device sales. Can you speak a little bit about the day to day, how it's maybe changing? So let's say, first case is at 7. Maybe take us through a fictitious day of, how things are changing and how you're working with your team and how cases get added on or moved around. And also, I think you're best to speak to kind of the role you play in the OR. You hinted at it where the physician might look at you, or if you see something, you will bring it up to him or her. Uh, but a lot of times in med device, I think the physician, the team's doing everything. What's the role of the med device? Why are they even in the room? If you could maybe speak to kind of the value brought there. So, fictitious day in the life, how things are always changing for you, and then the role you have in the OR.
Absolutely, Matt. For sure. So, as you probably know, and you might hear from Matt himself, every day is different. There's no set schedule when it comes to like, oh, these are my daily tasks because there's really none. Surgeries can be added on at a moment's notice, and you would have no idea. Uh, if your surgeon is nice and if the team is able to notify you, you might get a days ahead of notice, and there you can kind of plan ahead for the day. Like, okay, I have a 7 a.m. case, which means I have to leave the house by 5, which means I gotta get to bed early so I can be fully awake in the OR. And then throughout the day, some cases might get added on later, which means you have to might coordinate that with your team. If your team is small, you might have to, talk around like, hey, I'm covering this case down in this area. Are you able to go to this hospital that they added on for this case? And depending on availability to see who's available, we send different people there. And your job is in the OR, especially as a rep, you'll when people hear about it for the first time, they get very surprised about the fact that you're inside the OR. What are you doing? You're a salesperson. What are you doing next to the surgeon, right? It's like, what are you doing there? And your value comes when you realize that the surgeons are the experts on the procedure. They've been doing this for tens of years and helping thousands of patients. They're not going to really focus on whatever new medical device comes out or what the next best thing to do is when it comes to the technology that comes out. That's where you come in as someone to inform and educate the surgeon before the surgery. Like, hey, with this, we're able to achieve this certain amount of result. If that's something you're interested in, and surgeon will work with you from there to see if that's something that they find valuable. Inside the actual R, what you're doing is you are setting up the device tray that you're bringing in to see if everything is ready. And that comes with the logistics aspect of this job that I was talking about, where sometimes trays aren't where they're supposed to be. And your job is to make sure that they are there exactly when you said that they're going to be. Inside the OR, once it's processed through, you are helping set up the equipment for the nurse tech. So make sure that when it is needed during the surgery, it is available and have it prepared ahead of time, which comes to part of knowing every step of the procedure in the OR so that you're ahead of the surgeon. He's not waiting on you. You know every single step, so you just have that ready as soon as he wants it. It should be already good to go. From there, you're also talking to the surgeon, walking through the procedure. If it's a new surgeon, especially, you want to have your eyes glued onto every single thing he does because you will learn throughout your time and through training how exactly best case practices are for different instruments. And from there, you can kind of guide the surgeon, make suggestions. They're still the one touching the patient at the end of the day. Never overstep your boundaries in terms of telling them what to do. But if you see something wrong, the patient's outcome is always the most important thing. They should generally know what to do, especially since even before their first case with a device, they've gone through extensive training with the equipment to make sure that they're not lost at the first time. And I mean, these guys are surgeons, they've gone to school for so many years, some of the most educated people in the world. They know how to handle majority of things. It's just slight little nudges here and there in terms of the small intricacies that they might not expect from a new device or from a different company. Your job is to make sure that they can get the best outcome depending on what technique that they use. And from there, you're working with nurses to get the charge sheet ready to go, make sure the hospital knows what we use and when we use it, and making sure that everything on our side is as smooth as possible. Outside of the OR, it's a lot of windshield time. So you're driving around to different hospitals, you're making sure trays are where they're supposed to be. You're managing inventory when new things get shipped in. You're making sure that they go to the hospitals that they're meant to go to, whether that be checking in loaner trays or signing to SVD or just making sure that the inventory is stocked at different hospitals. And you'll start to learn how some hospitals can be mazes too. And that's always the fun part, trying to figure out whether you're supposed to go first time you're there at 8 a.m. in the morning. That's always a great time. But I think it's a lot of learning to do at once, and it's it's very fun just to get used to being uncomfortable. I think first time you're in the OR, you have no idea what is going on, but with a good mentor who's able to teach you and guide you through the process, just throwing you in the deep end might not be the worst idea. I think that's how a lot of people in this field learn. Just send you out there, figure it out, and without, overstepping too crazy of boundaries. But most people want to see you succeed. So if you're ever uncomfortable, good. That's the way you're supposed to feel and really push yourself.
That is right. I think we all remember covering our first case solo without our team member there to help us. Really great. Thank you everyone for sharing your stories and kind of the day in the life. With that being said, I think we'll open up to Q&A and we could approach this anyway. You could any questions could go to the chat. If you want to come off mute, happy to hear your question, or I also have some preloaded questions from everyone. And I think that the panelists with such diverse backgrounds, I think the questions will trickle to the right person appropriately.
I have a few questions if you don't mind.
This is why we're here. Thanks for being the first one, Nick. Right on, dude. I didn't want to be in silence for the last 30 minutes.
So, Min, you might actually be able to answer this the best just because of your orthopedic background. I'll just give you a quick summary of me. I'm a junior currently at the University of Florida. I'm in business management and I have a sales and entrepreneurship minor that I've added on. I currently work for a home restoration company. My whole background has been in the trades. I've worked for two different boat companies as a rigging specialist. I've worked for Ford as a lead service technician, and I also did sales and marketing for them as well. And I've worked for a custom home builder and now for this home restoration company. So my whole background has been in the trades, but I recently have talked to one of my best friends' dad. He owns Southern Edge Orthopedics. They're based out of Palm Beach, Florida, and they're just a distributor for Arthrex, and they do orthopedic and arthroscopy devices. From their territory is from almost up to the northern east part of Florida all the way down to the Keys. So they have a large territory, and I spoke to him about it. It seemed like something I was really interested in. To be honest, it was really my last chance of trying to do something corporate and not being in trades for the rest of my life. And my both of my parents, one of them is a internist of internal medicine. The other one is a gynecologist and a psychiatrist. So I've always kind of just had a medical background growing up as a family. And I thought that med device is something that seemed really interesting to me. And I also just really value, like all of you guys have mentioned, just making an impact in people's lives. The money never has been a factor for me. It's always just been, I get to go to bed at night thinking that I was able to do something better for that person. That's what makes me happy. So, getting to a couple of questions, I have an internship lined up this upcoming summer with Southern Edge. And in preparation for that, because I know that you can only get so ahead before your internship, but I really would love to have a good foundation of anatomy, being that I'm a management major, and anatomy is not on my requirements to graduate. So, I know that Arthrex, the actual website, offers training programs in which I'm able to do that and learn about the devices, but also the anatomy that goes into orthopedics and arthroscopy. So I was just wondering if there's anything apart from that that you could recommend, and then really just as far as anything orthopedics related, if there's anything else, any tips that I could have just before I start this internship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're really on the right path there in terms of being curious and wanting to learn more. And it's good that you're preparing early because, you can never not be too prepared, right? So it's good that you're already starting to think about what you can do to set yourself apart from other candidates that are pursuing this field or role that you're interested in. And from that, I'll just say, your first role, it's going to be, you're not expected to know everything about the anatomy, and it's a
Mhm.
lot less about knowing that and memorizing things rather than attitude, right? I think the statistics, like majority of ortho reps, especially, get the turnover rate is among the highest out of all divisions, especially since it's a lot of late nights, long hours, very early mornings. And well, you got to think about it on the hiring manager's end, right? Like, what's in it for me if I bring you on? Am I going to have to replace you in less than a year because you weren't cut out for it? And it's
Mhm.
hard to hear, but it is not the easiest view. Um, so from there, their main concern is not really whether or not you can learn the anatomy because they will teach you. That's part of the training, part of the onboarding. You'll learn the products, you learn the anatomy. You're expected to eventually once you start the role because you're not going to know the specifics of the product and how it affects the anatomy of the patient and what outcome it brings until you actually go through the training. What's really
Mhm.
important is if you have certain characteristics they're looking for. And you can name some general ones, of course, like being resilient, self-starter. Um, but it's always very dependent on the hiring manager, right? If someone is looking for someone a little bit more clinical and have an understanding of the anatomy because it's more, the field is more focused on that role, you want to learn what it is. And the only way you can find that out is if you talk to them. So that goes back to the networking aspect that I was talking about before. You're going to want to call the reps on the team that you're interested in, calling the hiring manager, understand what it is they're looking for when it comes to bringing someone who can help add value to their team and to their business, right? If they're looking for someone more clinical, yeah, obviously study up on the anatomy, get yourself ahead of that. But if they're looking for someone a little bit more sales sided, then focus on that. Really be able to set yourself apart from the other candidates, you know.
Mhm.
Some you're competing against people who are probably doing the same thing, but if you waste your time focusing on the wrong things, you might not get to where you want to be compared to just asking them directly, like, hey, you're looking for someone, blah blah blah. Is that the case? And they can say no, they can say yes, and then from there you can kind of figure out what it is that you want to focus your time on.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if you have, I mean, Arthrex is a great company. And if you want to get started into it, you're going to be learning a lot in the first few months, especially too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's great that
I'm
you're just getting
definitely
started.
prepared. I know that it's going to be a lot of work and kind of a workaholic. I've been working since I was 15 and I love doing it. I think it's really it's just something that I'm really passionate about. I'm always up early, always unfortunately to bed late too. I wish I could get more sleep during the day, but um yeah, I just think it's something that is really cool to me. And just be being in the trades, there's only so much that you can do, making a difference in somebody's day. So I try and do that with the other guys that I work with, but being able to make a difference in somebody's day every day, and also somebody that is a stranger to me, I think it's just something really cool.
Just to interject, Ahmed, thank you for your comment. He posted medtube.net, which has live videos of surgery, just to kind of give you ideas of what's happening in the OR and different techniques. And what's really cool is all the major sites. You mentioned Arthrex. I came from Medtronic, Biosense, all have these, let's just say academies, right? MedtronicAcademy.com, where you could go on and learn about the therapy, about the disease state, and it's really helpful. But Mitt made a really good point. Everyone's doing that. So how do you set yourself apart? The
Mm,
people aren't doing that aren't getting to the interview. You don't need to be an expert, but being able to be a little bit proficient, show the hiring manager that you could pick up these concepts is going to put you in a better position, right? It also shows people that you know how to go find material. You're a self-starter. There's other things that it's showing, right? So all most med device companies have really great training programs, but prepping for these interviews, putting the time in to have a good interview is important as well. And one thing it starts with is the clinical or anatomy for ortho.
I'm just going to add kudos to you for, coming from a background that isn't necessarily STEM and then going into medical device because you definitely don't need, a college degree in STEM to go into medical device sales. So um, that's great.
thank you.
I know you had multiple questions. If no one else has a question, Nick has one I think loaded up.
Can I also go before the list you're gonna go over? Or some Oh, Nick had more questions?
Uh,
No, go for it. Yeah, you're more than welcome to. I don't want to take up the
No,
entire
no, no,
30
no, 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 go for
minutes.
it. Sorry. I didn't get it. Go for it. Sorry.
Uh, so I just had one last question. It's probably a quick one that can be answered pretty fast. So I understand the interview process and what that's going to entail. Just, long, assuming that you were to get hired and you're wanting to be, the best sales rep that you can be, whether that's working your way up to be a territory manager, which is what my friend's dad did. He started out as a rep, then became a territory manager. Now he owns Southern Edge. And I talked to him about it, but I'd love to hear from everybody. I know everybody's got kind of just a little bit of a different kind of answer to it, but making this a whole career path where every physician can get to the point to where not maybe that you're a state renowned name, but just saying every physician that you talk to, like, wow, that was a great rep. I would love to just have him for the entirety of his career and just continue to work with him. Like, I know that Min had mentioned resilience and just being able to be thinking on your feet and dealing with stress. But what would you say, like, are there really kind of three key adjectives that you could use just to be like what would be the ideal rep? Because regardless of what I do, I know that whatever I'm gonna do the best possible that I can at it and trying to just set myself apart from everybody else. So is there any kind of, key adjectives that you would look for in that?
Yeah, Matt can definitely speak on this too, after his experience. But from now, just from my experience so far, it's good to say that you have certain characteristics and personalities, but it's also more important to actually demonstrate that too. And if you're speaking on a more interview aspect, right, everyone talks about the STAR way of answering questions, it's just duration of the task, and then going how you were to produce results from that. So saying you are hardworking is fun and dandy, but everyone's going to say that. So what
Mhm.
would actually demonstrate that, right? You want to show that, hey, because I did this, I was able to produce this, and that's because of my blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And in terms of what things you actually want to demonstrate, I would say the easiest thing to say would be, and the most important thing, at least from the surgeon perspective, which is eventually who you're going to be working for, right?
Mhm.
Is going to be availability. This was a big thing when I first started too. I did not expect the punctuality of which that I needed to get stuff done. So if a surgeon texts you, I was not getting around to it for like 5 minutes, and even that was too long. And nowadays, if a surgeon texts me or if a member of my team messages me, I'm screwing up if I don't reply in 5 seconds. So that's a big thing, whether that be 10 p.m.,
Mhm.
whether that be 8 a.m., it doesn't matter. So just say goodbye to whatever free time you have, especially if you're in ortho. So that's one
I was
big thing. Be available.
That's so big. That's so big. I've already texted two doctors back while we've been on this call. So
Yeah,
I can't echo that more.
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah, go
Gusty,
ahead,
we
Matt.
got to hear from you. What trait do you think sets you apart during interviews? And after you answer that, we'll kick it to Poria for his question.
Yeah. First, yeah, I just want to go back to like the doctor thing because I don't have too much sales experience because I've been heavy in the R&D. But since I was at a startup, I also got to do some product demos and stuff. So I think number one, the most important thing would be just having that clinical like fluency, like knowing those terms and stuff. And for me, what helped me was I came from like EMS background, so I was able to go through that and know about the systems. But also as mentioned earlier, yeah, watching live cases definitely helps. Especially for the cardiac field at least. I had no idea like STJ or decent acing, all that. So learning that terminology from live cases and just pausing them every few seconds and taking those notes really helped me a lot. But also talking with doctors, it really depends on which doctor you're talking to. Also, so I'd say like situational awareness like really important because some doctors are like really in a rush or antsy, or some doctors are more slow and methodical. So depending on who you're talking to, you have to like feel out the conversation, um, and you'll just learn how to go with the flow there. Yeah.
I want to add one other
Uh,
quick thing. Feedback, I think, is so important. Asking your physician, like, hey, what went well? Like, again, I don't sit
Mhm.
in a lot of these cases, so I don't get that immediate feedback like live, but it's good to follow up and say, okay, what went well? What didn't work well? Like, what would you like to see different in the future? Like, coming up with some of those solutions to some of that feedback is good as well.
I think those are all fantastic. I'm a UCLA guy, so I gotta give a shout out to John Wooden. For me, the most important thing and what you said about your friend's dad probably started with character. He was demonstrating high character for many, many decades, right?
Mhm.
Skills and your experience or resume come after. Skills are important, experience is important, but most important is character, right? So however you define that and however you could build that, I think will lead you to a lot of success. I think we got someone lined up for the next question.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Nick, thanks for being the first one to ask questions. Poria, all you. I think we're ready.
Yeah, sorry, Nick again. Uh,
All good.
so I'm not looking to sales, but I think you guys are the closest people I can find to this. I just signed my offer for a clinical specialist at AP. So I'm starting in 2 weeks. And thanks, Matt. You were the first person I actually asked about what it is. I was doing interviews for CRM, and you told me about EP at Boston, and I did an EP on Boston now. The main question is what would you do in your first year to be good at it? Like what am I supposed to be doing like in the first, like when I start? Because they did explain to me like you're gonna have like this long training stuff, and we'll rotate you through hospitals. We'll just send you like they sent me on during my interviews. They sent me to like 2 cases to see how life would be, which is like fine. But like that how would you just build that the career,
Yeah.
or just how would you do it better?
Are you still in Montreal?
Yes, I'm in Montreal. Yes, yeah.
Oh, very, very cool. I just visited in September. Absolutely beautiful city. Man, Katelynne,
Amazing. Yeah.
Gusty, I will answer this secondly, but what are your thoughts in a new role? How do you succeed and prepare? Really, that first year, especially for EP, is really a full-on training year. Corey, I know your background, PhD, you have a very strong background, so you'll do well.
Yeah.
But curious to hear from the panel on how, you really get ahead of the training in that first year.
Yeah, one big thing that I had to learn pretty fast was that organization is huge when it comes to keeping track of what you need to do for the day, along with what information you need to know. You need to take copious amount of notes, and if you come from an academic background, I'm sure you understand, but it's going to be a lot of information poured into you at once, especially when it's a very different field from what you're used to. Keeping track of calendars and journals in terms of what you did the previous day so you can refer back to it. So if a surgeon asks you like, hey, any questions on like the previous case, you can have that available to you right away. And that's one thing I was missing out on in the beginning that I've been able to improve on now is just knowing what I did on previous days and being able to refer back to it as soon as I can, because it's going to be a lot of information. However, best you tend to turn that into an agenda or a journal or keep notes, keep doing it because it's going to be a lot of information that you are going to need to know.
Thank you. I didn't think about it. Thanks.
I'm realizing hearing you guys how different my day-to-day looks as someone who sells like software as a service and not a physical product where I stand in the OR and watch these cases. So I'm asking myself these same questions like, wow, like, not having a sales background coming in, I'd probably ask myself the same thing.
So Katelynne, to be a little bit modest, Katelynne is able to have some of the most complex conversation with leading structural heart doctors, which are typically the top of cardiology, about really complex procedures. So with that being said, Katelynne, I know you're selling, but in a different sense, you're really a trusted advisor. So how in the first year did you set yourself apart to really understand a very complex procedure with major adverse events, and not to, shock anybody, but death, stroke, really major events that probably happen 1 to 2% of the time that physicians are trying to avoid. So in a year, how did you set yourself up to learn that?
Yeah. So it helped obviously because I came from a background of not only like biomedical engineering with a specialty in cardiovascular technology and also worked in a lab that was directly related to the space that I work in. But still today, like I spend probably 10 or 12 hours a week still reading literature, like keeping up with the latest publications coming out, new devices entering the market, the latest techniques that physicians are developing. I get a lot of feedback from other physicians that say, like, pick a topic, any topic. And for a couple of weeks, I'll talk to a whole bunch of our different partners and see like how the preferences change, by region, by physician, by hospital. And so that when I have these conversations with them, I mean, it's very flattering because I have people ask me, "Oh, are you a physician? Do you implant?" I'm like, "No, I have a strong, a BME background, and I read up a lot on these things." But being able to speak their language, I think, is really important. Not only to be able to provide expertise on the device itself, but the overall like disease, obviously having a good understanding of EP in general, the different pathologies, all of that stuff. So I guess reading up on everything you can, which if you have a PhD background, I'm sure you're used to that.
And then
Yes.
Dr. Corey,
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, my
no,
convocation was today. Yes. I'm
yeah,
officially a doctor now.
Yeah, well, Dr. Pereira, there we go. That is it. Hey, I'm so
Thank you.
excited for you. The EP field is one of the most innovative. It's really exciting. You're going to absolutely love your clinical specialist role. I know you referenced it's not a sales role. It is a clinical sales role. You're there to support excellent procedures and also drive growth. BioSense is the market leader, and you're going to be firsthand working with those doctors to help them improve their techniques and also drive business. What I would do in the first year, you have a BioSense Johnson & Johnson is the number one med device company, right?
No,
They're going to have a
I finally signed the
with
Boston
Boston or
Scientific.
ah,
Boston. Yeah,
all right.
I did interview for Webster too at
Cool.
J&J, but like they were like way too
Yeah.
weird
So
of people. Boston were
yeah,
a lot
but
nicer.
so culture is important. Boston Scientific is another
Yeah.
major medical device company with a very strong training and a device that's growing really fast. So the first year, what I would do is excel in all the trainings, right? You have a PhD, so you know how to do well in the classroom. So when you go in office or remote, you do great in those training sessions, right? And then during your home training, get out as much as possible to go see cases. You only learn from complex cases, right? If you're seeing slam dunks, you're like, okay, you need to get out in the field and increase your chances of seeing complex cases that you learn how to troubleshoot and support with a skilled rep. Most importantly, you need to talk to your team. Everyone wants to help you and have you be a winner on your team. I would get with the best reps, the best clinical specialists, and develop a really good relationship. Just be mindful in the beginning, you know nothing, and people are like, oh, that person's a burden, but you find a way to add value and you learn from them and you call them. You're going to talk to people. They're going to say, Gusty, my way is the best way. You talk to KB when during ablation, she says, my way is the best way. You talk to Min, talk to Nick, it's their way. You talk to me, my way is the best. You acknowledge that. You take pieces from everyone and you come up with your way to best support physicians and the patients. The first year is learning. Second year, you're probably serviceable. Third year, you're really adding value in these complex cases. I know with your background, you're on a accelerated path. But my biggest thing is reach out to people that people aren't going to reach out to you. You have the training classes, but you have the power to reach out and really control your education. And then, the emotional intelligence, the soft skills you learn elsewhere. I'm super excited for you though. We have nine
Yeah.
minutes
Thank you.
left.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Um,
guys.
Yeah,
yeah,
big
thank you. And
congrats.
congratulations on the
Yeah.
dissertation. In the last 9 minutes, any 9 minute questions? 1 minute. Oh, Lauren. Came off video for your question. I'm excited.
Hi, just to quickly introduce myself, my name's Lauren. I'm in my senior year at San Diego State and I'm studying management information systems. I grew up a professional dancer, so there's always that competitive aspect and I love innovation and tech, so that's where the information systems came in. But I'm really passionate about healthcare and I just didn't know in what capacity I can get involved until I heard about this industry. Since I've heard about it about a few months ago, I've tried to get as involved as I could. I have two sales internships that I've gained from there, but they're more on the software side. But I'm really interested in devices and just getting involved in med sales. I had one interview with Johnson & Johnson for their sales development program, and I made it to about the third round. And I'm just curious what to do when it comes to interviews and how you can take lessons from them. When I came in doing the best prep I can, just knowing about the industry, the company, the product, and doing practice interviews. How can I learn from them? And especially when you're not getting feedback from companies, where can you find that gap of what you can do better?
I'll go first. The job market is really tough right now, and especially for medical devices too. It's a very competitive field where a lot of people do want these roles, especially for the entry level ones. And so you're always trying to set yourself apart from the rest of the candidate pool, right? There's a lot of ways to do that. There's wonderful resources online that you can look for. One of them actually is Matt. Matt makes great videos on data lives and just interview tips, and those can be great resources. If you haven't checked it out already, you should be because he's the one hosting. But he's great. There's several people on LinkedIn that you should definitely follow for in terms of what you should be doing in the interview, in terms of approach, questions, follow up. I can name a few. Ken Elmore is great. Jesse Solar is also great. These people are medical device reps that have also been providing great insights into the interview process and what the hiring managers are looking for. There's podcasts online that you can look for in terms of that bring on hiring managers, and they literally will tell you, hey, if a rep is interviewing me and this is what they do, I'm more likely than not to continue them on to the next stage. Versus if a rep does this, I might note that down and maybe pursue with someone else, right? Just always keeping it back in your mind that you're competing against other people that might or probably will have more experience in terms of direct sales experience or even direct medical device sales experience. So how are you able to, as someone who doesn't have that experience, compete with that, right? What sets you apart? And it's never, don't focus on the other candidates, focus on what strength you bring into the business eventually when you do become a rep. And from there, demonstrate that value as a rep for the company and as a rep that helps out the surgeon during the procedures. There's a lot of
So,
great resources online. I'd definitely look into those.
man, I know you were an amazing candidate and probably never got rejected, but if you did get rejected, would you ask the hiring manager for feedback or where the weaknesses are or maybe why they didn't proceed with your candidacy?
That Matt talked on a really great point there, and that's one question that I ask at every interview. And I've coached some people actually during their medical device interview process that recently actually also landed a clinical specialist role over at J&J. And he said that from the hiring manager's perspective, that is a question that always they love hearing, right? Learning to over That's part of the job too. This whole interview process is part of the sales cycle, right? Where you're not selling the product is yourself. So from that, you're basically asking like, do you have any objections? And from there, that's a great to ask as a salesperson because they want to see how you're able to overcome certain apprehensions they have, right? Because much like selling your own product, people might be having other people in mind. So what really is the difference between you and those other candidates? So asking, hey, is there anything that I've talked about that you might have hesitations on moving me forward is a great way to just directly tackle that, right? Shows that you're not running away and that shows that you're able to willingly directly talk about the strengths and the weaknesses that you have.
Touching on that, I did make sure to do that after each interview, so thank you for sharing that. But do you recommend reaching out after receiving the rejection and asking for feedback, or do you think that's not appropriate?
With the job pool nowadays, I mean, these people are talk to hundreds or if not thousands of applicants. So you're
Okay.
free to send whatever message you want. Just might not expect a message back because busy part of the day. But if you get any positive feedback, like hey, like we love your interview, unfortunately we went with someone else. You can always say like hey, don't mind being part of the candidate pool for any future opportunities that you might have, anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben has a really good point. The medical device field is very small. And coming out of college, you feel like you have to do and take the right first step and climb this ladder. The medical device field is very small. So if you have really good interviews with a manager and they proceed with a different candidate, I feel comfortable asking, hey, listen, no, you went with a different candidate. Can we set up time just to review how I can improve, right? And let's establish a relationship. Then I come back in 3 months and kind of work on those things, and another job opens. I'm in a really good spot, and it's hard to fathom that, like, oh, like I'm gonna wait 3 months. You never know how it works. A lot of us have crossed paths at the same companies and get picked up. So keep applying. And the other thing too, I know how much it sucks. It feels like you're getting ghosted. Sometimes a job posts and we already know who we're hiring. And this is technically illegal, but they have to post it publicly. They have to have applications come in. We know, for example, we're going to take Gusty, but we have to go through an interview process and then you don't get a response. That's super frustrating. That's not right towards your time or any candidate's time, but that's sometimes what's happening. But being able to make connections and follow up with managers over a long period of time is going to be super, super important.
I've also had several people reach out to me, like when we post openings for positions, people on LinkedIn. I think someone just messaged us in the chat about people reaching out to other people at the company to say, hey, like, would love to hear your experience with the company. I have a few questions, and I'm always open to like talking to those people with, regarding those interests.
Yeah,
So,
we want to see you succeed. I think Caitlin is right there. I think everyone here will share the same perspective in terms of we were in your shoes at a certain point, and we want to see you succeed too because we're paying it forward, right? Somebody helped us get into this role, whether that be networking, talking about the role, just to get us in the door, and we want to pay that forward to you guys. So don't be afraid to reach out to anyone you feel like might be valuable just to be in a relationship with, or just in terms
mhm.
of wanting to get to know more about their role and their company.
That's why we're here tonight. Literally that.
Yeah. With
But
that
this is,
being,
yeah, like, oh, sorry.
oh yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, yeah, keep staying curious and like stay on LinkedIn and reach out to as many people as you can. And even like a quick message like, hey, I'd love to learn more about your role or what you do. And one big thing for me that helped was that treating each like connection like a tree, like using them as, hey, like, do you have other friends at your company or people that you know that can help me out? And each connection can lead to 10 more and 10 more. And it keeps building up like that. So that's what really helped me out. as well as not just asking like, hey, could you help me with a referral, but also saying, hey, if possible, like, do you have a connection to like the hiring manager, things like that. And yeah, I'm currently a senior, so I'm also like in the interview process and stuff. So for me, like I think I'm currently in the Medtronics like interview process. And what really helped out was yeah, making that second step of like, hey, after referral, like could you reach out and email this manager? And that's when I finally heard back. So I'd say just yeah, just go that second step further.
Awesome, Gusty. That's a good way to end it. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're coming up on the 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock mark. Um, just a quick takeaway. Everyone on the panel, it sounds like someone helped you get in. I remember the person that helped me get in, Gusty, Min, KB could reference that person. Before we sign off, I just want everyone to just to thank Min, Gusty, Katelynne. Thank you so much for your time, sharing your story, your day in the life. This is super helpful. This is a great way to share about the amazing field of medical device and the impact you have on patients. We'll do more of these, so stay tuned. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.